Meet the first person to travel to every country on Earth twice. Gunnar Garfors has achieved a total of 10 travel records, traversing war-torn countries like Eritrea and isolated nations like North Korea in the process. His records include being the first person to sleep in every country and being the fastest to visit all 6 inhabited continents. After visiting every country in the world, Garfors completed the feat a second time around 5 years later. He said he noticed big differences in the way people were living in that 5-year gap.
The main differences from visiting every country the first time to the second time probably has to deal with technology as well as quality of life, I would say. Luckily, and it has improved in many places, not in all, unfortunately. But typically you see that people are having better lives, more access to food, to housing, and so on. When it comes to technology, more people are online than the first time, which it can be good in many ways. Increased usage of the internet in particular, especially on mobile phones, makes it's easier for people to exchange money, for instance, or to pay for services. It also makes it easier to travel. More people are actually traveling to faraway places than before.
Garfors says it's impossible to choose a favorite country, but some of his favorite places include New Zealand, Norway, the Marshall Islands, Romania, Central Asia, and Dominica. He's written multiple books about his life and documents his travels on his TikTok, @Garfors. Garfors said his passion for travel first began at 3 years old when he was living in a small village in Norway. His father worked on a cruise ship and would send home cassette tapes documenting his adventures.
Every day we ran down to the mailbox 100 meters from our home to see if one of those envelopes were there. When they were, we ran back home to put the cassette into the cassette player, press play, and then listen to these fantastic tales from my dad. And I promised myself, told my mom, that when I'm as big as dad, I also want to travel to lots of countries.
Garfors is now one of the most well-traveled people in the history of the world. He said he managed to do it by, for the most part, working a full-time job while traveling.
I've been able to fund all these travels through having a full-time job for 20 plus years. 3 years ago, I quit my job to live from travel, to write books, to do presentations, and fingers crossed that will last and keep me going. But for the vast majority of the time, I've been having a normal job at Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation in Norway as a journalist and a project manager. So I've just sort of prioritized to travel. I've saved up all the money I've been making. I've just spent all my money on travel. So I never had a car, don't have fancy clothing, fancy art on my walls, stuff like that.
Garfors encourages new travelers to start small and travel local to build up confidence before going on huge trips all over the globe. One of his main travel tips, though, is to not always listen to guidebooks or people online when traveling somewhere new.
The best travel tip I have is to, instead of just relying on influencers or other people that you follow in social media, it is to talk to the real experts of wherever you go, either in advance or when you're there. If you don't talk to local people, and a lot of us, we don't. We travel with other people from home and we never really talk to the people that we're visiting. So what's happening then? Then we end up being sort of observers. We take photos, we get likes on Instagram or TikTok, and we're happy with that, but we never actually participate. So we should be participants, not only observers. And I think that's really important when we travel. Otherwise, what's really the point?